Look, it's almost that time. March is here, and everybody and their mother has a video going around about the 8 teams, the 9 teams, the 10 teams, or the 5 teams, the only teams that can win a national championship. These are good videos. I enjoy watching them because you kind of get to see who knows ball and who doesn't. Nah, just kidding. But it's interesting because as March Madness pickers, we want to be able to narrow down our choices. So, because it's a guess, right? It's an educated guess on who's going to win. And so we want to narrow our choices down. So this is going to be a combination. We have 9 teams here, 6 teams that Zach and I consensually agreed upon, and then 3 teams that we disagree upon. But I see where he's coming from, and I don't know. I just wanted to throw him in. Look, so these are kind of 3 analytical things I found online about common denominators for national championship teams. Obviously, there are outliers, and perhaps this year may be an outlier, and I threw maybe an outlier in at the end. But statistics show that most of these things happen, So I think that ought to account for something. That shouldn't mean that you pick a team just because they meet these criteria. You actually have to watch them and really see. Here are the 9, right? So I believe it said 24 out of 25 teams, this is via CBS, had a top 21 offense and top 21 defense, according to Ken Palm, adjusted efficiency. Shout out Ken Palm. Their numbers will be used. Their favorite. Most teams, this is my research, going back a long time ago, have had a first-round draft pick on their team, a first-round NBA pick. So just keep that in mind. Guys that may go in the first round. Obviously, some of these guys don't develop until later on, but most teams have them. And then you can't see it, but it says 20 out of 22 of the last 22 national championships teams were either 1, 2, or 3 seeds. So most likely going to be a higher seed. That being said, we will get to it. Number 1, Duke. This is quite easy. Most people would pick either Duke or Auburn, which we'll get to next, as the favorite. They're the number 1 team on Ken Palm, number 1 team on Evan Mia, have the number 1 player in the country, have the number 1 draft pick, probably close to the number 1 program in the 21st century. Like, you get the point. They're amazing. I also put the Final Four MVP just as a, prediction on here. Cooper Flagg is obvious. Con Knipple is also amazing. The analytics back it up. He's incredible. Gotten way better on defense. This team has just improved defensively and offensively everywhere as they've gone along. They're number 2 in offensive efficiency, number 4 in defensive efficiency. Look, this team meets every one of the analytical criteria. If I were you and I was just picking based off the analytics, I feel as if this would be the team to go to. But it's not just all analytics. Another team that meets all the criteria is Auburn. Now, Auburn, they meet the criteria, obviously. They're the number 2 team in Ken Palm, number 1 in offensive efficiency, number 14 in defensive efficiency. Not as analytically great as Duke is, but still pretty incredible, especially because they play in the SEC and they've had some injury issues this year. Obviously, can't go with anyone else besides Janai Broome as your Final Four MVP, but they have other guys that can maybe get the job done too. Tahad Pettiford, I could see him being really good either next year or, heck, if he goes to the NBA draft this year, I think he'll be all right. Denver Jones is a very solid player. Dylan Cardwell, I like a lot. And Miles Kelly. all guys that are very good. Personally, I wouldn't bet on Auburn, mainly just because a ton of people are going to be betting on Auburn, which is fair. But I feel as if they're a little weaker than some of these teams. I think they're very beatable, especially when injuries occur. But phenomenal regular season for Bruce Pearl and the guys. They should be on this list. They can win a national championship. Look, number 3 is Houston. Houston's third team in the country, 9th in offensive efficiency, 3rd in defensive efficiency. There's a strong world in which they win the national championship. I personally think that this is the best bet, I would say, because they're going to be 3rd in the odds, but they are right up there with Duke and Auburn as the best team in the country. The one problem, I think, is just that they don't have a star like they've had in the past, really. Like a Jarris Walker. They haven't had that many quote-unquote stars, but like a guy that can really carry. But LJ Cryer is the guy who hits clutch, tough shots. They're shooting 40% from 3. They play incredible defense, as Kelvin Sampson's teams always do. I could see him getting over the hump this year. And I want to put a disclaimer. We enjoy defensive teams more than offensive teams because defense does travel. Kind of wanted to put that disclaimer out there. That's why, as you'll notice, Alabama, not on the list. Sorry, Tide fans. Just a little skeptical about the defense. Same with some other teams that are in the mix. This is a team that I was skeptical about their defense, but number 7 in the country doesn't lie. Their offense is amazing. Their guys are a lot tougher than I thought. They rebound really well. I think this team has the total package, really, of pieces. The Florida Gators. Florida's had a tremendous season after losing in the first round last year. I think deserves to be a 1 seed right now. Their Final Four MVP is Walter Clayton. It could go other ways too, but I really like the guys they have down low. Condon, Haw are both very, very good players. Handlockton coming back. And then their guards are incredible too. So what's not to like about this Florida team? Obviously, I have had concerns in the past about defensively, like could those guys guard guys in the low post? But when you blow out the team that's going to be the favorite for the national championship at home or on the road, excuse me, you deserve to be in, and you meet all the criteria, of course. Next up, we got Texas Tech. Look, Texas Tech, this might be one of our outliers we have, depending on if they end up getting a 1, 2, or 3 seed. They're on kind of the cusp right now. I think they're slotted as a 4 seed right now, but that could very well change in the final couple weeks. Look, this team is interesting because obviously Texas Tech isn't a basketball juggernaut, really. They made it in 2019 to the championship game with Jarrett Culver. But this team is much different. They have NBA talent, I feel like, in Darion Williams and JT Toppin, obviously. Chance McMillan's really good. Christian Anderson's good. Elijah Hawkins is really fun to watch. Texas Tech, not amazing in the defensive analytics. They're just inside the qualifications, but I feel as if they do play hard defense under Grant McCasland. The only thing is, will they get that higher seed? But keep in mind, Darion Williams, JT Toppin, they could be a very scary 4 seed. No one wants to see them. No 1 seed would want to see them in the Sweet 16 as a 4. We agree on Texas Tech. St. John's, right? The Johnnies. amazing season under Rick Pitino. Obviously, Pitino has coaching pedigree and experience that also helps. I think only a couple of the champions in the last 10 years were first-time champions, that being Virginia and Baylor. St. John's, obviously not a perennial powerhouse, but Pitino's been there before. Got to be careful, even though they'll get a 1, 2, or 3. Got to be careful with the offense. Offensively, they stink. They can't shoot at all, and that could really bury them in a game. But the thing is they play incredible defense. They're number 2 in defensive efficiency via KenPom. And overall, they just know how to win games. They make clutch shots down the stretch. They play really hard. If anybody's like a team of destiny, quote unquote, I could see it being St. John's. Kadari Richmond is, I still feel like a sleeping giant. He can't shoot at all, but when his shots are falling, boy, he's a tough player to stop. I'm just a really big fan of St. John's as a whole. And I think they can go very far based on how they're playing right now. Now, I know we hated on them earlier in the season, and some people would want me to double down on my take and stuff, but I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say that Tennessee, there's a world that they could win the national championship. Would I bet on them? No. I still think they're very vulnerable. But I would say that as the number 1 defensive team in the nation and the 21st best offensive team, number 5 on KenPom, the vibes are high. Of course, they lost to Ole Miss the other day, but beating Alabama on that last second shot. And Chaz Lanier has been outstanding. He's, in my opinion, a first-team All-SEC guy. Zakai Ziegler is playing his best, I feel. He's a very indispensable player for them. The only question is just the bigs. I still have that question. I feel as if these bigs, Milicic and Akpara, aren't as good. But, Rick Barnes is going to have his team up and ready for the challenge. Rick Barnes, another coach that hasn't gotten over the hump. But if Lanier gets hot, as we've seen him do, and this Tennessee team is making their threes, of course their defense is going to travel. And team could be dangerous. So I would include them in my list. Here's another team who I personally would not include in my list, but I can't give up on them yet. And there is a world, I suppose, where they get in. The 11th team in the nation, Iowa State. I'm just kind of perturbed by the loss at Oklahoma State and then losses at home to Kansas State and BYU, where BYU turned the ball over 29 times. But Tamin Lipsey is a heady vet. Their whole team is full of vets. They're finally getting healthy now. Curtis Jones is a bucket off the bench. And in true Iowa State fashion, they play very hard defensively and have great defensive rotations and whatnot. Offensively, this team can be lacking at times. Ranked number 27 in offensive efficiency. Look, this wouldn't be my first bet, but we predicted Iowa State to win the championship at the beginning of the year. So we got to stick to it here, right? Another team, and the final team that can win a national championship, my Texas A&M Aggies. Yes. Look, I know the numbers aren't flashy. They're probably going to be a 4 or 5 seed. But they literally play 8 seniors in the rotation. They are monsters on the offensive glass. Wade Taylor is a guy who chucks up shots, and most of them don't go in. But occasionally one does go in. And he's a great leader. He's just got his number hung up in the rafters. What current college player is getting that for him? Zurich Phelps is a very good guard. Henry Coleman's been there for a while. Look, I just feel as if this team has continuity. I feel as if Buzz Williams can, well, he hasn't really done it, but they beat Auburn on their senior day. They have some really good wins in the SEC, and I feel as if this is just a sleeping giant that will surprise some people. Obviously, there's a world where they get knocked out first round and they can't hit a shot and they're turning the ball over all the time. But there is also a world where they catch fire, and if they hit their shots and they rebound the way they do and they play defense the way they do, with being battle tested in the SEC and having the caliber of players that they have, I don't know if there are many teams out there that can beat them consistently. So that's the list. So we got Duke, Auburn, Houston, Florida, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Iowa State, and let me go back. St. John's, of course, and Texas Tech, the red teams. Those are the 9 teams that can win a national championship. Look, you may say it's ridiculous you don't have Alabama, Wisconsin, Clemson on there. Totally fine. Michigan State. Understand your opinion, but I think that this one is correct. And CBS, y'all are going down this March.